Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. This is the weekly chart of Apple provided by netdandian.com. You can click on the link below. The reason I brought up this chart is because I've been calling a top in Apple for a while now. I actually called it here. It turned out to be wrong. We bounced. Now, the interesting thing about this chart is we have a very significant divergence here. You can see top and top, top and top, and the MACD has actually crossed to the negative side. Apple actually reached 60 overbought condition on the MACD. So will we correct down to the zero line? What will the price be when we get there? I think it's just going to be a matter of time. One of the things that happens with these types of stocks is that once enough momentum gets going to the downside, in other words, people start piling out, it becomes a cascading effect, just the way it is a piling on effect on the way up. So we're going to watch this one closely. I think the news out of Foxconn and some other things have added to it. So let's jump over to silver. Now, I had predicted in the last video that we may be looking at a correction. You can see that I was saying we may just get a bounce off of this level, which it appears to be happening so far. But then again, the MACD is going lower than this point. So we may go lower. The AGQ put that I had predicted would be one to look at. It gained about 30 or 40 cents today, but we haven't had that significant move, so we're back up to 34. We'll have to wait and see if we get that sell-off. Gold is not nearly as weak. You can see gold is holding in around this support line, and it came down below it, and now it's coming up above it. So we'll have to watch that as well. The euro is kind of sideways, as well as the Japanese yen, although the yen has a very serious drop-off point that it's been challenging for a while. Various central bank interventions, as Jim Willie has pointed out in his recent video interview, the Fed has to get the other central banks on board to devalue their currency equally as much as the US dollar, or the dollar will stand out. So the Fed has to make sure that they have the EU, the Swiss, and the Japanese and others. The Chinese remains to be seen. Now, that was one that we had been watching, the cross rate on the Chinese yuan. And we've had some interesting action of late, almost like kind of an intervention scenario. The yuan has bounced up and then down and then up and then down. So it's hard to say which way we're going. These new lows are the ones we're watching very closely, because in the past you can see that when the Chinese currency has been released from its peg, it has declined precipitously. We've actually had two of those. One up here back in 2005 around 8.3, and then we went all the way down to 6.8. Then we held steady for nearly 2 years, and then we declined again down to where we are now. So are we going to have another one of these runs? This MACD overbought signal seems to indicate that we will get new lows in the dollar versus the Chinese currency. Now let's jump over the questions of the night. A lot to cover, so let's go through these fairly quickly. This one is from Two Line Pass. Question is, hey Brother John, I enjoy your videos and hope you can take some time to answer this question. Why suppress silver? I ask this because if it's true that the central banks and powers that be see silver as their Achilles heel and a threat to any master plan, why would they intentionally suppress the price in a range where people can purchase it? If silver was allowed to be at a fair market price in a ratio relationship to gold, 15 or 16 to 1 at today's price, $1,775, that puts silver in the $110 to $118 per ounce range. Any person or institution powerful enough to manipulate silver prices could still amass plenty at that price, while on the flip side it might put silver out of reach for the common man trying to pay his bills. Any insight is appreciated. Keep up the great work. Well, I don't agree that it will take it out of the reach of the common man, because you can still buy silver dimes, and so that's going to be a fraction of that. Even if an ounce is $100, you're still going to be able to purchase a tenth of that. So $11 to $20. That's not really going to be the explanation, in my opinion. Now, I don't have time to go into it. Eventually, hopefully, I can do a long-term historical study. If you really want to understand the long-term historical picture of the suppression of silver, you can go over to David Morgan's site and pull up the Charles Savoy articles. This is a suppression and conspiracy that goes back over 100 years. Why are they doing it? Well, the bankers demonetized silver back when they controlled gold, and if you remember, the American, especially with the Comstock Lode, the American money was silver while the European money was gold, and that was causing the value of the bankers' money to decrease. So it's a long story. I don't have to go into it here, but there's a lot of reasons to suppress silver. Another reason is, of course, the Silver Users Association members, their interest in getting cheap silver. I think ultimately it's going to backfire on them, as any price suppression does, but in the short run, or even in the intermediate term run, they've gotten a lot of very cheap silver. Next question. FOFOA versus Brother John. This is from George Silver. Dear Brother John, I must make a confession. I've been actively reading FOFOA. Their argument about free gold has some merit, but their antagonistic approach to silver seems almost to border on hatred. I've taken the liberty to now and then post some of your material in their comments section, including your latest Silver Suppression Explained Part 2. The response is always the same. They cannot bear to listen to anything other than their own fixed mantra. I know you have mentioned them before. I would love for you to dissect FOFOA argument in your usual analytic manner. Well, just to explain the concept of FOFOA, which I've done before, but briefly, FOFOA stands for Friend of Another. FOA, Friend of Another, was a poster who came out on the, I believe it was Kitco Gold Boards, correct me if I'm wrong, who came out with a theory and exposure about the weakness or a kind of alternative to the petrodollar system. Basically, the argument was that the members of the OPEC nations who were collecting dollars through the petrodollar system, they wanted some type of guarantee to continue that system. If you know anything about petrodollar recycling and how it worked in the past, you know that those nations pretty much recycled those dollars back into the United States, whether it was treasury bonds or stocks or real estate, other things. Those dollars all had to come back home to find a home, or they build up in Eurodollar reserves and purchased things in Europe as well. So, but the point that FOA brought out originally was that they required something more because they were concerned about those dollars being inflated away. So that was when the scheme was designed to allow them to take physical gold deliveries off of the London Metals Exchange, or I'm sorry, the LBMA, and to back their investment, their valuable oil, to actually get something of tangible wealth for their valuable oil. That's the theory, that's the idea. Now, it seems to be a fairly reasonable theory, and if we look at the Arab Spring and the activities that have gone on, where apparently it seems that the powers that be have gone back into those countries and removed the physical gold. So now, why is there a hostility on the FOFOA site? I've actually done in the past, you can look it up, a 9 or 10 part exposure of the FOFOA attack against silver. I'm not really sure what the reason is behind that, but that site and that theory has been very hostile towards silver, and I can't say what the reason is. If you go down and dissect it to the very end point, something or other, the argument is that one, that your silver will just be confiscated, and two, why would you want silver to replace gold? So I don't really understand the position, and I suggest that you go ahead and dissect everything on that site, try to figure out what's behind that. Last question of the night, and this is going to be the main topic of the night. This is from Fiery Phoenixy, and hi brother John, new sub here. My question is, when does the new $100 bill come out? They've been saying it would release since 2010. Are they waiting for an event to send this out? Will this be released when the Fed finally devalues our currency 40% on top of all the other devaluing they're doing? Thanks for your work. And there's a picture of the new bill. So let's take a closer look at the new bill. I'm going to cover the Bixweir hidden meaning behind the new bill and look at that some. But first, I want to take you over to newmoney.gov. That's the official site of the government. And we've had this delay. The delay was supposedly about a creasing issue. You'll see they're talking about it in this video. And this is a progress update you can see from June 1st, 2011. This was actually supposed to be issued, and you can see on the PDF that I'm going to cover, if we go to the bottom, well, that's not the one. There's a story about it. I don't have that story anymore. But it shows a picture of Bernanke and the others in the Federal Reserve standing in front of the new $100 bill. And that was actually a 2009 date on that bill. But there have been multiple delays. So let's look at the official explanation, and then we're going to talk about a few other things here.
The Federal Reserve Board is committed to keeping you up to date about changes to U.S. currency. In April 2010, a new design for the $100 note was unveiled. We're here with an update on the progress that we've made towards introducing this new note and a sense of what to expect in the future. I'm Sonia Damberg, and I'm responsible for the U.S. Currency Public Education Program at the Federal Reserve Board. First, we want to make clear that the new $100 note is not currently in circulation, and the Federal Reserve has not yet announced a new day of issue. We've postponed the introduction of the new 100 because of a problem with sporadic creasing of the paper during printing of this note at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, which
So that's going to be the question. Do you believe that this is an issue with creasing that's delayed this as long as it has?
Manufactures U.S. currency. This problem was not apparent during extensive pre-production testing.
So that must not have been very good pre-production testing. Wouldn't you think that you would try to simulate circulation of these and counter that?
The $100 note was redesigned to stay ahead of counterfeiting threats. There is no large-scale counterfeiting problem with the current design, and you can still trust and rely on its security features.
Okay, so that doesn't really make a lot of sense. They have to issue a new note for security features and counterfeiting features, but there's no threat to the old one.
Such as the portrait watermark and color shifting ink. While work is underway to address this issue, we don't yet have enough information to make a decision on when the new notes will begin circulating. What we do know is the Federal Reserve will allow at least 6 months between the announcement of an issue date and the day of issue for the new design.
So we know now that the new issue will not be out before March of next year, and probably halfway through the year in the summer of 2013. This is something that was supposed to come out in 2010, and the date on the bills that are pictured behind Geithner and Bernanke actually have a date of 2009. So I'll leave it to you to decide if this creasing issue is the reason why they're delaying so long. Now, they're saying that they have to ensure that businesses have the ability to plan and prepare. This is also a release from newmoney.gov. This is the explanation of the new bill, and you can see that we get these two things here, the 3D security ribbon and the bell and the inkwell. So here's our two ways of checking the security of this. You can tilt the note back and forth while focusing on the blue ribbon. You will see the bells change to 100s as they move. The ribbon is woven into the paper, not printed on it. And secondly, the bell and the inkwell. Tilt the note to see the color shifting bell and the copper inkwell change from copper to green. So those are your two security features, the way that you can identify the new bills as being legitimate. I don't really understand why it would take 6 months to explain that to people when I was able to explain it to you in about 30 seconds.
This will ensure that businesses have the time to plan and prepare for the introduction of the new note. Here to provide greater detail on the work being done to address these important issues is Michael Lampert, a Deputy Associate Director at the Federal Reserve Board, who has responsibility for U.S. currency.
A great deal of work has gone into identifying the problem through the Bureau of Engraving and Printing and its paper supplier, Crane & Company. While we understand that there's not likely to be a silver bullet in this particular case, they've investigated a number of different possible solutions, and they've made several process changes. They've conducted numerous tests, and while we think we're on the right path to finding the solution to make us all comfortable, we're making sure that we do have the solution, that it's sustainable and repeatable. As an added assurance, we have asked a consulting firm to give us an independent assessment that the steps that have been taken will actually solve the problem.
So the government had to go out and hire an independent consulting firm to make sure that, as you'll see, this 1+ billion number of notes they printed off, it's all just crazy stuff.
Running parallel with this initiative, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing has about 1.1 billion notes that they had printed before they discovered the creasing problem. They've done some hand tests already, and those tests have suggested that, by and large, the majority of these notes will be usable. They are looking for an automated solution so that they can work through that inventory much faster.
So there's this creasing problem that they apparently have a solution for, and the $1 billion worth of notes they've already printed off, I don't know what the cost is for a $100 bill, probably with this new high technology, maybe $1 per note, maybe 50 cents. So they've already spent $500 million to $1 billion on this, and they are waiting to see if this new automated process has the ability to fix the creasing issue and have it be applied to the old notes, the billion of the old notes, to fix the creasing issue. So that's very, very strange. I don't know how you could fix a creasing issue by applying some new thing to the bills. So let's leave that there and jump over to the Bixwear, the hidden meaning in the new $100 bill. Now, Bix goes into a lot of things here. I don't have time to go into all of it, but if you just look at the note, one of the things that stands out at you is the amount of gold that's on the note. You have a gold feather, you have gold writing, you have a gold inkwell, you have a gold 100. There's also a gold 100 on the other side. And so let's look at some of Bix's analysis. Okay, so it may be a coincidence, and I may have an overactive imagination, but bear with me while we explore further. Take a real close look at the new bill, keeping in mind that the U.S. has a special history of hidden meaning behind their bills, and there's a real possibility of a currency crash with a return to the gold standard in the very near future. Let's start with the most glaring difference, even from the other new colored bills, that huge blue stripe down the right center. For those who are not familiar with the symbolism of the American flag colors, red symbolizes hardiness and valor, white symbolizes purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Is it possible that the big blue stripe may have more significance than you might expect? When it comes to monetary theory, there are really only two serious camps. The first believes in fiat paper money, and that's on the left, and the second believes in hard money backed by gold, and you can see that's on the right. Let's assume these two opposing ideologies are represented on this bill. Look closely at the left side of the blue stripe. Let's say the left side represents the fiat paper money camp. There is no new coloring at all, just the same old drab green, the same old fiat money. It's all there. The words Federal Reserve note, the official Fed seal. Ooh, looks like the Treasury Secretary's signature has been moved from the right to the left. And for you currency buffs, even Benjamin Franklin is positioned on the left of the blue stripe with that quizzical grin. Why, you ask? Well, not many know it, but Ben Franklin was a big supporter of paper money in his day. Don't get me wrong, he was a great and loyal American who is very much anti-banker, but in his day the battle was reversed. It was the English bankers who were all about forcing the colonists onto a gold-silver standard, but Franklin knew that the overseas trade would leave no physical money for the colonies to conduct domestic commerce with. It was probably the true cause of the American Revolution. Here's a good representation of what happened, and he gives you a link there. Truthfully, it's high time we rewrite all the U.S. history books to tell the real story. The American Revolution was a rebellion against the banksters. Back to the greenback. So you can see that everything on the left side of the new $100 bill relates to the continuance of fiat money. Now let's look on the right side of that blue stripe, the vigilance, perseverance, and justice side. Oh my goodness, gold galore. A gold inkwell, a gold Liberty Bell, a gold feather pen, a gold 100, a gold watermark, gold writing in the background, gold July 4th, 1776. There's even a huge gold 100 on the back of the right side. The right side of this bill is so full of gold it will probably droop when you hand it to the cashier. Here's my take on the gold symbolism. The U.S. is long prepared to return to a gold standard, and the time has come. The gold inkwell symbolizes the power of Congress to pass laws that can dismantle the fiat money system with a stroke of a pen. The gold Liberty Bell within the inkwell symbolizes Congress's ability to write laws that destroy the banking cabal's stranglehold on the liberty of citizens of the United States. Notice the words, "This note is legal tender for all debts public and private," has also been moved from the left to the right side, or the gold standard side. Notice how the color of the 100 on the bottom of the front changes from green to gold. Still not convinced. Now my favorite, look at the wording above the 100 on the far right. Do you see it? The people to alter or abolish it and institute new. And I don't have time to go in further. I'll link this. This is the note that I was talking about that shows Bernanke and the rest of them. A 2009 note. You can see it was that JB series, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But there's also some strange gold over here. We don't see that on the bill. But if we go to the poster, and we don't have it here on this one, but if we go up to the very top of the poster, you can see that 2009 shot, and very clearly you can see the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute. So that is a very interesting quote that they decided to put in gold. And they also, you can see here, they folded it over so you can see that gold 100 on the back. So something really serious is going on here, and there is that delay, of course. Last thing I wanted to take you to, this is for the real tinfoil hat people, is the video that was produced by AP, and this was on April 21st, 2010, and this is the new $100 bills roll off the presses. Now, if you watch this video very closely, you can actually get a shot of the serial numbers on here, and that's somewhat anomalous as well. So you get a shot here of the serial numbers, and then we begin to scroll the other direction. Now, one of the commenters on this video mentioned that they have the same serial number. They actually don't. Those serial numbers change, but they change in number only 3 down. You'll have to go in very close and analyze this to see it. I've got it on 480p, but it's hard to get still shots of those numbers. So a lot of very suspicious and interesting things going on with the new $100 bill. What does it mean? Well, one thing that it means is that, and one question that one needs to ask is that if, as they mentioned in the video, that there's no danger of counterfeiting of the old bills, then what's the purpose of the new bill? But if there is, which it seems to be that the U.S. $100 note, at least from what I've heard anecdotally, is one of the most counterfeited bills in the world, at least overseas. What does that portend if at some point they decide to cut off those old notes? So if they issue this new note and they cut off the old notes, they set a date for the old notes to come in, then obviously the people who are sitting on those notes, whether they be drug traffickers, terrorists, foreign criminals, gangsters, they're going to have a limited amount of time that they're going to have to turn those notes in, and that's going to raise the flag of the tax man. There's a lot of things that are going to happen if they set a deadline for the old notes to come in. So that's a warning shot across the bow, and what's interesting is that this warning shot has been delayed for so long. So back to that main question, what is the reason why this is delayed so long? I can't tell you what the answer to that is, but I can tell you that it's most likely that the note will not be released until at least the summer of next year, and the Fed is being very closed-mouthed about why this delay is taking so long. I suspect it's something more than a problem with a crease. So back to the charts. Let's get back to the gold chart. Gold is still very, very strong. If we pull out from the weekly to the monthly, we haven't had a cross to the upside. We're still in overbought territory, but it looks like we're moving towards a cross to the upside. On the silver chart, we are coming back from a much more oversold position. You can see we corrected back down to about 1.1 or 1.2, and that's pretty much corrected all of the overbought condition that we had, which was all the way up above 6. So we may get another smackdown and have a drop below that 33, and then maybe even down to 32. But it does appear right now that we're getting a bounce off of this 34 level, and it may be that that is about all we're going to get on that sell-off. If that's the case, then today was probably a good day to stack. You can see that going back all the way to early to mid-August, we've actually corrected back on the MACD. So we're heading up towards the zero line. Will we get a rally, or will we get a sell-off, a dramatic sell-off like in September, as Clive Mond has predicted? Only time will tell. And we'll talk to you next time.